Meet Natalia Grace, an innocent child accused of masquerading as an adult. In 2010, Indiana couple Christine and Michael Barnett adopted Natalia, then 7, who has a rare form of dwarfism called dystrophic dysplasia. What was once thought of as a compassionate act soon unfolded into a whirlwind of court battles, criminal charges, and a truth so tangled, it's still fiercely debated 15 years later. What happened to Natalia Grace? When the Barnetts adopted Natalia, her birth certificate stated she was born in 2003. But the Barnetts soon grew suspicious of Natalia's real age, and after claiming they discovered she had pubic hair and was menstruating, accused her of being an adult masquerading as a child. They also accused her of issuing death threats and attempting to harm Christine and their 3 biological sons. In one jaw-dropping moment, recreated in the Disney Plus series Good American Family, Christine orders Natalia to clean the kitchen, only to later take a sip of her coffee and recoil, suspecting it had been laced with cleaning fluid, something Natalia strongly denies. I feel like I have to defend myself and be like, do I look like somebody that could push someone twice my size into a fence? Do I look like I could even grip a knife? Natalia said in The Curious Case of Natalia Grace. Natalia speaks docuseries. I feel like I was brainwashed by the Barnetts. Christine coached me to lie about my age and say I tried to murder my parents. Why would you do that to your child? The Barnetts put Natalia through physical and psychological evaluations, which indicated she was likely in her late teens or early 20s. Fueled by the shocking revelations, the Barnetts convinced an Indiana court in 2012 to legally reclassify Natalia's age from 8 years old to 22. A year later, they shuffled Natalia between multiple apartments before fleeing to Canada, cutting all ties with her. She was then taken in by her neighbor, Cynthia Mans, whom Natalia would later accuse of exercising control over her. I didn't understand why I was alone. I just knew I had this instinct in me to push and survive, Natalia told People. All I was told was, you're 22 now. Whenever somebody asks you what your age is, you say you're 22 and you tried to murder your family. I was taught to lie. In 2019, Christine and Michael Barnett, who had by then divorced, were thrust into a legal firestorm when they were hit with multiple charges of neglecting a dependent, claims they've always fiercely denied. Michael told Good Morning America that doctors treating Natalia allegedly told them, "This person is a sociopath. This person is a con artist. You are all in danger." He was acquitted of all charges in 2022, and the case against Christine was dropped the following year. In 2023, DNA testing confirmed Natalia's birth year as 2003, ending years of controversy. Natalia, who is now 21, is focused on earning her high school diploma and pursuing her dream of becoming a teacher, while building a life with her boyfriend Neil. "I'm a girl who loves kids and wants to get married and have children," she says. "But one of my biggest things is not making promises I can't keep. I've had too many promises that have been broken. I'm just ready to move on." In the twilight shadows of suburban Indiana, a story emerged that blurred the line between horror and heartbreak, fact and fiction. It was the kind of tale made for tabloid headlines, courtroom dramas, and late-night true crime binges. At its center was a small girl with a doll-like face, a broad Ukrainian accent, and a birth certificate that ignited a nationwide debate. Her name was Natalia Grace. To meet Natalia Grace in person, one might first notice her size. Petite, just over 3 feet tall, with proportionally short limbs, a characteristic of a rare form of dwarfism called spondylopiphyseal dysplasia congenita. Then, one might notice her eyes, wide and observant, always a few seconds ahead of the conversation. She smiled easily, yet uneasily, as though she had learned early that charm was sometimes her best defense. When she arrived in the United States in 2008, Natalia was believed to be 6 years old. Or perhaps not. That question, how old is Natalia Grace, really, would eventually spiral into a sensational legal battle, tear a family apart, and send shockwaves through the foster and adoption community. She was adopted by Michael and Christine Barnett, a seemingly ordinary American couple with a big house, 3 sons, and a heart for children in need. To them, Natalia was a blessing, a vulnerable child from a Ukrainian orphanage, abandoned because of her medical condition, in need of love and care. But very quickly, things started to unravel. Christine claimed that Natalia's behavior was off, not just troubled or traumatized, but disturbingly mature. She reportedly spoke about periods in adult relationships. She allegedly threatened to harm other children, tried to poison her mother, and smeared bodily fluids on walls. There were claims of violence, manipulation, and deceit. Christine came to a terrifying conclusion. Natalia wasn't a child at all, but a sociopathic adult posing as one. It sounds like the plot of a horror film, because it was. In 2009, a movie titled Orphan told a remarkably similar story of a childless couple who adopt a sweet little girl from Eastern Europe, only to discover she's actually a homicidal adult woman. Whether the Barnetts were inspired by fiction or overwhelmed by fear, they took extraordinary action. They petitioned the court to legally change Natalia's age from 8 to 22. Shockingly, the court granted it. From that moment forward, Natalia was legally no longer a child. She was a 22-year-old woman, a woman without a family, living alone in a Lafayette apartment, fending for herself without support, education, or guardianship. The case should have ended there, but it didn't. Years later, the Barnetts would be charged with neglect. Public outrage surged. Was Natalia really an adult? Or had a traumatized child been criminally abandoned and smeared by the very people who had promised to care for her? Medical experts, psychologists, and legal authorities began to weigh in. Pediatricians who had treated Natalia argued she had the teeth and bone density of a child. Teachers and social workers said her emotional development matched that of a young girl. Photos of her from the time show a fragile, underdeveloped figure in oversized clothing, smiling awkwardly, clearly out of place in a world of grown-ups. Then came Natalia herself. In interviews, she spoke calmly and directly, denying the allegations that she was ever an adult pretending to be a child. "I'm not a monster," she said. "I'm just a little girl." Her speech was halting, but her message was clear. She had been wronged. The very people who were supposed to protect her had instead cast her in the role of villain. She didn't understand why. She didn't understand how. She just wanted to go to school, to make friends, to belong. Public opinion began to shift. The court of law dismissed the neglect charges against the Barnetts in 2022, not because Natalia had been proven to be an adult at the time, but because of the legal technicality. Her age had been officially changed. The law no longer recognized her as a minor, even if all signs suggested she had been one. But by then, the damage had been done. Natalia's life had become a media spectacle. Documentaries were filmed. TikTok sleuths and Reddit theorists dissected her mannerisms, her interviews, her medical history. Every expression she made became a clue. Every contradiction in her story became evidence for one side or the other. Yet in the center of all that noise was a simple truth. A child, or a woman who had once been a child, had suffered immensely. Whether she was 6 or 22 when abandoned, she was still a vulnerable human being, caught in a whirlwind of misdiagnoses, misjudgments, and media frenzy. Today, Natalia lives with a new adoptive family, the Manns, who treat her not as a mystery to solve, but as a person to love. She attends high school. She bakes cookies. She watches cartoons. She has dreams for the future. Her new parents describe her as funny, bright, and deeply empathetic. They believe she was a child all along. So do many of the doctors who have evaluated her since. And maybe that's the heart of this twisted, tragic tale. Not the question of how old Natalia Grace was when the cameras started rolling, but how quickly the world was willing to believe she wasn't who she said she was. In a society fascinated by deception and scandal, it's easy to forget the cost of being misunderstood. Easy to reduce a complex life to a viral headline. But Natalia's story, equal parts strange and sorrowful, reminds us that some narratives should be approached not with suspicion, but compassion. Because if Natalia Grace was, in fact, just a little girl crying out for help, then perhaps the real masquerade was not hers, but ours. A world too quick to judge, too eager for a twist, and too slow to believe in the simplest story of all, a child needing love.